Komano that has not led them to understand the Bible as we understand Petro chapter 1 now mama chinenero okazika kokosa amene kuchita bwino kuwasamalira monga nyale yonikira malo anyani andima kufikira kugaja ndika ukanthanda pa mitima yani. So nthanda ndi Yesu Kristu ndiye mawu amulungu akuza kunena kuti we have prophecy imene ikuyenera kutithandiza up until Jesus Christ is born in our hearts, up until we fully reflect the character of Christ, up until the second coming even of Jesus Christ. So prophecy imenena kuti itithandize kunena kuti we should be more Christ-like. Matthew chapter 24 verse 15 to 21. Whenever we read the Yesu Kristu na Yesu anatuuza kuna we have to read the prophecies. Verse 15. Chifukwa chake iye amene awerenga mkalata azindikire. So I'm not going to read the other verses. Komano you understand kunena kuti Yesu Kristu akupereka a warning, so to say, kuti when a certain event happens, ifeyo amene timawerenga tikuyenera kuti tizindikire, and that we should make certain movements, certain changes in our lives after that event happens. So kuti ifeyo tifike ponena kuti tazindikiradi kunena kuti icho chachitika kuti chonyasa chakulusa chaima, tikuyenera kuti tikhale kuti tikuwerenga buku la Daniel ndi kuimvesesa bwino, and the book of Daniel is largely a prophetic book. Komanso kuti tiziwe zoyenera kuchita, that's 1 Peter 12 verse 32 imene matuza kuti ndi ana a Isakara anthu akuzindikira nyengo akudziwa zoyenera Israeli, akulu awo ndiwo mazana awiri ndi abale awo onse anapenyerera pakamwa pawo. So ana Israeli ndi umene wa Isakara umene umawauza anthu nthawi imene wakukhala ndi chimene amayenera kuchita pa nthawi imeneyo. Ndi chifukwa chake Aroma chapter 13 verse 11 ndi 12 imatuza kuti ndipo chitani ichi podziwa inu nyengo kuti tsopano ndiyo nthawi yabwino yakuuka kutulo, pakuti tsopano chipulumutso chathu chili pafupi koposa pamene tinayamba kukhulupirira. 12 usiku apita ndi dzuwa layandikira, chifukwa chake tivule ntchito za mdima tivale chamuna cha kuwunika. Reason number 4 is that we should receive my blessings. Amene makamaka chapter 1 verse 3. Wodala iye amene awerenga ndi iwo amene akumva mawu a chinenerocho nasunga zolembedwa momwemo pakuti nthawi yayandikira. Reason number 5 is a very important reason as well. Evangelism page 196 paragraph 2 imatuza kuti atumiki azipereka mawu okhazikika chinenero monga maziko a chikhulupiriro cha a 7th day. So ndifunse kusankamu ukamamanga nyumba foundation ndi choyamba kapena chomaliza chino mama choyambirira. So pamene akunena kuti atumiki amene azipereka mawu achinenero okhazikika monga maziko, that means kuti our faith is supposed to be based on prophecy. Siyo ndio? Okay. Ndipo muongezana ndi iwo mawu a onani mwana wankhosa wa Mulungu amene achotsa tchimo lake la dziko lapansi. So tikuwuzira kunena kuti timene tikuyenera kuti tipereke ngati foundation ndi nkhani ya ulosi, komano in connection with ulosi tikuyenera kuti tifotokoze za Yesu Kristu ndi imfa imene anatifera pa mtanda. So the foundation, as long as it is sure, it is safe for us to live in that house. Number 6. Kikundi wasa kunena kuti pazachitika chitsitsimutso chachikulu tikawerenga ulosi. Testimonies to Ministers and Gospel Workers, page 113, paragraph 2. Tiyeni tipereke nthawi yambiri kuwerenga kwa Baibulo. Sitimamvesesa mawu monga mmene tikuyenera kumvesesera. pamene ife ngati mpingo tamvesesa chomwe buku ili, buku lake ili moni mpingo tilimozi koma I'll be checking by the questions I'm asking. Pamene ife ngati mpingo tamvesesa chomwe buku ili, buku lake ili pachilunguso, okay, likutanthauza kwa ife padzaoneka pakati pathu chitsitsimutso cha sitimamvesesa mwathunthu maphunziro amene limaphunzitsa ngakhale tapatsidwa lamulo kuti tilifufuze ndi kuliwerenga. So maybe part of the reason why ndikupanga muzochitika zathu ndi chifukwa chonena kuti sitikumvesesa bwino lomwe buku la chilunguso or prophecy at large. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16 to 17 manya kulemba lilonse atalikuza Mulungu ndipo lipindulitsa pa chiphunzitso chitsutsana chikonzero chilangizo cha chilungamo 17 kuti munthu wa Mulungu akhale woyenera wokonzeka kuchita ntchito iliyonse yabwino. So maonena kuti akhale woyenera, in the English it reads that the man of God may be perfect. Manjira ina tunaonena kuti munthu akhale wamphumvu wokonzeka kuchita ntchito iliyonse yabwino. So for our perfection we need to understand prophecy. Ellen White in page 63 paragraph 1 brings us the seventh reason. Abulibali choonadi zantengwa patali zambiri zopezeka mmawu a Mulungu, koma ndi choonadi cha nthawi iliyo. Choonadi cha nthawi iliyo inoyo, okay, chimene nkhosa zikusowa panopa. Ndaona choopsa cha amithenga kumangodutsa mothamanga pa mfundo zofunikira za choonadi cha nthawi ino namakhazikika pa mitu imene ilibe kuthekera kulunzanitsa nkhosa ndi kuyeretsa moyo, pamene pa Satana atenga mwayi uliwonse kuti awononge ntchito. So right now there's a very big push for unity in the church, kuti we should be united, tizipanga zinthu limodzi and things like that. There should not be any disruptions. Kumano the unity may not be coming from the correct source. Kuzida unena kuti matruths amene ali present truth na amene akunena kuti pangayana unite. Okay? So often pali connotation unena kuti choonadi chimene chili nthawi ino ndi choonadi chimene chimatipangisa kunena kuti tilekane. Komano malingana ndi mawu a Mulungu, God would rather have us be divided because some people are not accepting truth. Because in the end, in giving the truth, there are going to be people that are going to be united on truth. And unity, so we are told, topic Samene compose present truth. 63 paragraph 2. Kumamitu iyo monga number 1, ndija? Chema, mono mingizana ndi number 2, masiku 2,300 aja. 3 maamulo a Mulungu, komanso 4 chikhulupiriro cha ndani. Okay. So hapo kumaona kuti pali middle follow. Saying is, kwa mamitu iyo monga chihema, molu mingizana that we often hear. It's rare to hear a message on the sanctuary. The 2,300 days is even more rare. Malamula Mungu, yeah, that is more talked about. Chikubeda Yesu, relatively less. Komano, we are also told Nina Budi, Malamula Mungu, and Chikubeda Yesu, so Nina Budi is Moses supposed to be given with equal force. When that is not truly the case. So, sanctuary. We're going to learn about the sanctuary in connection with the 2,300 days. So I hope that will help to clarify this and this. So, but in the Nobegonos, we need to make some cheat so much we are rosy. Commence with Ya Rose. There are three major ones. Many of these are cheat, but they will not the futurist, the preterist, and the historicist method. My 7th Adventist, some of these are children in more. Did I get you? Which method do 7th Adventists use? Historicism. Okay. Mugangambiria futurist method, commands of the preterist method. Muzabe Sakuti, these methods of interpretation were invented for a particular reason. During the Reformation, Martin Luther, Zwingli, Wycliffe, and all those, and all of them, they were united on several key doctrines, one of which was calling the papacy the little horn of Daniel chapter 7. Are we together? So, Osewa, the little horn. So, the papacy now were receiving a lot of criticism. All these people are pointing the finger at us. So, the basic intention Tisamalo Zed the little horn or the Antichrist, as referred to in this book of 2 Thessalonians. So, my interpretation of the futurist method, commands for the preterist method, both of them essentially just remove the papacy during the Antichrist. So, what is the futurist method? Futurist method is not Chito, the Ampalugo, Munga, evangelical. Baptist Maso Pentecost. Mambo hiyo ni balemba. Many Vega Manwema Modelo. Israel kana Kristo nyengo zantawi katisi adani akumpoto kumwela ndikuma this is the sources not the many and I'm sure kuni you have heard kunena kuti tribulation and things like that. This is that interpretation. In the future. And so, future events as one of those. A Christ so one of what we got a bit of Mamba. Can I have a photo of them? A Christ will never have one no. A Christ knows someone no. Yes. So you will have nothing to worry about. Because the time when the trouble is coming, you are the so it even removes the necessity to prepare for the second coming of Christ. During the time of trouble, they will not even be on the planet and they'll have nothing essentially to worry about. I hope that's clear. Okay. The preterist method, so this method is a very interesting one. If you had my message, I'm going to Daniel in the time when Daniel realized. Morning, bingo. Do we believe that the book of Daniel was written or Daniel? Now that's very concerning because I remember actually Kainaga was asking a question. Are you drunk also? Was it or somebody else? Yeah, we drank the wine of Babylon. Okay, tikamani kakukula Ezekiel. Tuma kulikuwa kuna Ezekiel na mna lemba. So Daniel, did Daniel write the book or did somebody else write the book? You know, there are times where we can attribute a letter to Paul when he did not actually do the actual writing. But because it was him giving the instruction on the writing of the book, he is the one that wrote the book. Are you together? Okay. Yeah. So, did Daniel write the book of Daniel? Huh? I hope the online audience will be more responsive. But Daniel wrote the book of Daniel. Are we together? Him to have written the book, he must have written it in life. Unless we believe that the dead. Yeah. Okay. So, if Daniel wrote the book of Daniel, then it had to be written in the 6th century BC. Okay. Chifukwa jana. Ana Israel anatengedwa ku Kapolo, the 7 years captivity in which anyway, I've forgotten the exact year, but we should be about 70 years before 538, so you can just do the math. But the point is, when I will form a bubble around here, Chakaja 605. Daniel was still alive. He continued to live in the Persian kingdom. And a few years after that, about the 3rd year of Cyrus, now, Daniel wrote all these things while he was alive. Omano, this method of interpretation, the book of Daniel was written, I think, about the 1st century BC. Within like 500 years. So it was not necessarily the book was a prophetic book, but that it was a historical book. In history, so that's the interpretation in our part. And in this method of interpretation, in the last method, I'm a futurist. Antichrist as a Jerusalem, in a little temple in Jerusalem, for you to tour the sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that it is God. So they take that literally, the Antichrist shall sit in the literal temple, and when we see that happening, we shall understand that the prophecy has been fulfilled. Whereas this method, the preterist method, the Antichrist was a very bad person. You can look up the history of this guy called Antiochus Epiphanes. The Antichrist. And all those things. So this guy must have been the Antichrist. So you will find within both of these, the Antichrist is different from how we as Seventh-day Adventists understand who the Antichrist is. They are using the historical format. So, we say actually a Seventh-day class. Also, one is long time in the Ankara, ndipo umabikirale tochika china kusala na nyingi zake kufikira utafika pachimake ndi kukhazikitsidwa kwa ufumu wosatha wa Kristo. Amene bazambeka zambeka ngati zambeka nyifusa mafuso zambeka. Alright. So Daniel, mena mapeleka ulosoma Daniel chapter 2. Mudu wa goli ndoni ni generally, what did it mean? Specifically, yes, Nebuchadnezzar, but generally, so we can say Nebuchadnezzar and Nicopolis' son, and then Belshazzar, his grandson. Now, you notice in Naguti Urosio, Ukuyamba, how we made Daniel, and I didn't know how many Daniel Amanini. Are we together? Daniel chapter 7, we find the first beast was a lion with eagle's wings. Okay? That is also during the time when Daniel Amanini. Okay? Now, Daniel chapter 8, that was also during the time when Daniel Amanini. And same with Daniel chapter 11, let's go to the book of Revelation. The 7 churches. What was the name of the first church? The church of Ephesus. Okay? When did the church of Ephesus exist? Which time period? The dates are AD 31 to about AD 100. Okay? Who wrote the book of Revelation? John. When did he write the book of Revelation? About 92 to 94 AD. So you will find Nenagudi Muntu Amenya and Babukala Yumusoyo. Namine so Ali member one pingo where because the prophecy is starting from the time that the prophet is alive. They seem very simple. But I can tell you, a lot of misinterpretations of prophecy happen. These small things we miss. Timatakumanga interpret the 7 churches. The 7 seals. Then you got 7 trumpets. The 7 trumpets the fall of the Roman Empire. Or something further than that. When prophecy grows up in Agoti, we need to see these apocalyptic prophecies as we'll see. We need to see so it's a very important rule. And I'll show you why in this slide, why we use this method. Because it's a method look at chapter 24, verse 25 to 27. It says, So akubuza kunena kuti anayamba kwena kwake. Akanena kuti anayamba kwa Mose. What does that mean? What does anayamba kwa Mose mean? Not necessarily. From Genesis. Are we together? Because the distinction there is Moses and John and Eleven. You remember when in the time of Christ, the divisions of the Old Testament were the law of Moses and the prophets. That's why they say that the law and the prophets, the law and the prophets. I have not come to destroy the law and the prophets. That's what Jesus Christ meant. So, it means that he started with the first 5 books of the Bible. It means that he went to the rest of the Old Testament. So he started from the very beginning. And if when we interpret prophecy, we ought to start from the beginning, and where that prophecy begins, we need to trace the prophetic lines, seeing what has been fulfilled step by step, to figure out the zero community. So I'm not going to read everything. So one of our prophetic prophecy is mainly found in the books of Daniel and Revelation. In this just main Magamba, Daniel chapter 2, 7, 8, 11 falls under apocalyptic prophecy. The seven churches, the seven seals, the seven trumpets, these fall under apocalyptic prophecy. There's a chain of events that is being explained up until Christ sets up his kingdom, or the second coming of Christ. One important thing about apocalyptic prophecy is that the seven churches, the church of Ephesus, then came Smyrna, then came Pergamum, and then Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, mpaka na Laodicea. Pamene Ephesus anachoka Ephesus asabirasa. Kandikoza tomu. Ephesus anakwera Smyrna ujasomano anakwera ndipo anapita satsabirasa. There are some spiritual lessons we can draw from the church of Smyrna, from Ephesus. I'm not denying that. Komano, in the apocalyptic chain of events, Ephesus wapita, Smyrna wapita, there's one interpretation, I guess fulfilled once and then it goes off the scene. Just like Mutwa Goli de Ujamino Nachoka, Mutwa Goli de Silveraso, Panobody Tuti Kumabazi, that's what prophecy tells us. Classical prophecy Makanga Kihani, you will just read about a story, you will talk about Babylon coming and whatever. It's not very symbolic at all. It's usually in plain language. And then the last type of Bible prophecy is typology. You are familiar with typological prophecy. For example, like in Nehemiah, there's a daily service and then there's a yearly service. So time in a jail, one sent a malon kajisi, and then now we understand those things were typified or typifying the work that Christ would do. And then in Uchakacha AD 31, Yesu Christu, Analowa, which is the Chopa Duliga, Gamba and Chito, 1844, he went into the most holy place to grab us of Chito. So those are some of the typological issues that we must say. Something happens on a smaller scale, and then but globally it happens on a larger global scale. That's what typology is. So I want to take you through this and then we'll come to a close of this lesson. Because was our crusade. One of the major things that we do, especially in a crusade setting, the little horn of Daniel chapter 7. The little horn of Daniel chapter 7. Chapter 13. So we deal very heavily with Daniel and Revelation, and it is important to understand some of the rules that govern the interpretation of Daniel and Revelation. There are 9 of them. Number 1, Mabuka Daniel Mruso, and I am the Muchilankulo, charge Panizio Masu Panifan. In Hosea chapter 12, verse 10, I told him, Dalaplans and Daniel is before again, and is a muscle pain that is about 5 billion and mixed militaries. And he was an Yalam Nene, Dinane, so, Zinus made the way, Tima language, kapena symbolic language. Now, the second reason, the second thing that we need to understand, we need to commence on our Olumikisa. In chapter 16, verse 12 is in Manam. Linazo, Zambi, Zabrina, Koma Singa 13. Koma Alazaye, Simwajonani, Alasugura, Mutuana, Jonse, Coxas, Plaza, Koma Zizonse, Azazimba, Azazula, Nico Zituzin Kunza, Azakula Rikiran. So, Mungo Mamba, Amadi Puzisa Ifeo, Bamono ni Bamono. Maninga na ndikutekera watu kumvesesa zimene yakunekunzisa mulungu amadziwa kunena kuti akadakhala kuti anangotivumbulutsira tiona ndichonse nthawi imodzi, it would be too overwhelming for us. So zimene mulungu amapanga amamba kutiphunzitsa pang'ono, just like any teacher will do. Lero mwaphunzitsa mwana manambala kuyambira 1 mpaka na 10. Tomorrow you will find out if they can remember their numbers from 1 to 10, because it is no point you teaching numbers like 16, 17, 18, 19 when they cannot even remember. Kuti 6 then comes before 7, and then 7 precedes 8 and precedes 9. So you have to lay the foundation first, and then afterwards you build on to more complicated things. Nilifanya kama pesa kuli Daniel chapter 2 ndio kupeka kwa mbili. It is very simple in its details. Komano, as you go from Daniel chapter 2 to Daniel chapter 7 to Daniel chapter 8 and then Daniel chapter 11, there is much more detail in many Ikwangiba add of Sukolo. And yeah, that's the point that we have to get from this. Komanso nthawi zinawo pezeka kuti ulosujoma chakupanga kwezedwa to give the impression that that thing is sure. Mukumbukira nthawi imene Farao analota maloto awiri ndipo Yosefa anabwera kutazama asungire maloto amene aja. Yosefa anamuwuza kunena kuti the reason why these visions have been given to you twice is because it's one vision. Kabena kuti ni chimozi imene chikufoloweza. Now, number 3, chilankhulo cha chihema. Verse 13, Mulungu malobadilika munjira yanu, Mulungu wangu ndani munga Mulungu. So you find kuti there's a lot of symbolic, not symbolic, but a lot of sanctuary language when you consider prophecy. Do you have any examples that you can think of immediately? Any prophecy that has some sanctuary language? Let's widen, not widen, but narrow it down. Daniel and Revelation, from these two books. Anywhere where you see symbolic language. Alright, look what's randomized. Daniel chapter 8. There's the first animal, which is a ram. And then the second one is a goat. Are you together? Okay. The lamb, in the daily service. Whereas the goat is what's used in the yearly service. So just those two animals being mentioned, it already gives you the picture. This prophecy is going to be talking to some extent about the daily and the yearly services. The 2,300 days, because it shows now that there's going to be a transition from the daily service to the yearly service. Komanso chapter 1, for example, and you know the 7 lamps are the 7 churches. So that is some of the language that we find in the books of Daniel and Revelation. Number 4, palizintira zimene manyera kuzimvesesa zokuzana ndi mbiri. Awiri mwa mavesi atatu aliwonse mu chivumbulutso amatengedwa kapena amalozera kuchipangano kale. So if you really want to understand the book of Revelation, you have to read the Old Testament for you to understand. So sometimes you have to do some background reading. For example, chapter 16. It talks about some kings coming from the east. That is a reference to many Babylon Aguera. Cyrus was a king that came from the east. He drained up the river Euphrates with his 3 armies to defeat the kingdom of Babylon. So one time, Jesus Christ is depicted as a king coming from the east, and he is also going to destroy Babylon by draining its waters, which are the people, and using 3 armies to 3 angels' messages. Chapter 3, verse 16, verse 15 to 16, Monga so mbale watu wokondedwa Paulo nonga manzeru zakusira kwa iye anakulembera mu 16 monga so makalata ake ose kukamba momwe muzayi zimene muli zinthu zina zovuta kuzizindikira zimene anthu osaphunzira ndi osakazikika apotoza monga so alero nawa malemba ena ndi kuono zononga tiwoene. So sometimes you have to understand what the structure of the passage is like for you to be able to interpret it. Zimene zimakhala zofunikira kwambiri ndichifukwa chake Petro amanena kuti nthawi zina Paulo akuti sunamwerenge bwino zopeza kuti iweyo wazipotoza zimene iye wanena. Number 6, onse amachitira umboni za Khristu ndi mbali ina yake ya ntchito yake. You remember by John chapter 5 verse 9, Yesu Khristu anena musankha malemba popeza muyesa kuti momwemo muli nawo moyo wosatha ndipo akutichitira ine umboni yomweyo. Mwanjira ina the whole Bible in essence is talking about Christ or some aspect of his work. Now number 7 is a very interesting one. The first time that something is mentioned in the Bible, we need to pay close attention to it. That first mention gives a scope of how that word is going to be used throughout the Bible. So, in verses say, for example, Babylon, we need to go into the Bible and find out where was the first time that Babylon fell? Or where is the first time that Babylon ever context to how it is being used later in the Bible. This is the Hebrew sanctuary. You could have been familiar with the structure. The Lord since you guys need to propose the structure. The very first prophecy of the Bible. Minimum Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Ndipo ndizaika wadali pakati pa iwe ndi mkaziyo, iwe mkhala na Satana, the serpent. Ndipo pakati pa mbewu yako ndi mbewu yake, ndipo idzalira mutu wako, ndipo iwe udzalira chitende chake. So you will find this is the first prophecy Bible. And when you consider it carefully, it gives maulosi onse amene adzapezeke mu Bible akunena kuti apange they are defined by this number 1 prophecy. So chitende cha Khristu chinalalidwa mu chaka cha 1831. Iye anafa monga mwana wankhosa apandani. Sicho ndomo. Alright? And then mutu wa Satana akaphinyidwa pamene Yerusalemu watsopano watsika oyipa onse nawonongedwa iye atatha kukhala mchipululu zaka 1000 monga Azazeli. So after that, Christ would have set up his kingdom on earth and there will be no more sin forevermore. So you'll find the very first prophecy spans all the timelines that are possible for us to conceive in time. But after this event happens, there will be no more time. And then the books of Daniel and Revelation, Acts of Apostles, page 585, paragraph 1, which you can say a Bible, akugumana komanso kuteramo apa ndipo pali chitsirizo cha buku la Daniel limodzi ndi ulosi linalo chivumbulutso. Buku lomwe lidasekedwa si la chivumbulutso ayi koma mbali iyo ya ulosi wa Daniel yokhudza masiku otsiriza. So we find the books of Daniel and Revelation them as one. Tikamama subira kula chivumbuluso sikuyenera kuti izisempana ndi master akakuka Daniel and vice versa. That's why they are one. And then finally, pakufunika chikhulupiriro. I have read 11 verse 6. Koma wopanda chikhulupiriro sikuteka kukondweretsa pakuti iye wakuza kwa Mulungu ayenera kukhulupirira kuti alipo ndi kuti ali obwezera mphotho iwo akumufuna iye. So I'll finish with this quotation from Gospels to the church, page 333, paragraph 5. It says, "Siwonse amene amanena kuti amasunga sabata adzasindikizidwa chizindikiro. Pali ambiri ngakhale pakati pawo amene amaphunzitsa choonadi kwa anthu ena, such as myself, amene sadzalandira chizindikiro cha Mulungu pa chipumi pawo. Anali ndi kuwala kwa choonadi, ankadziwa chifuniro cha Mbuye wawo, ankadziwa mfundo iliyonse ya chikhulupiriro chathu, koma analibe ntchito zofanana nazo. So it is possible for us to know all the points of our faith. Those many of us in that Adventists amakhulupirira kudziwa kufuna ine yonse kudza ulosi, koma awo amene anali odziwa kwambiri ulosi komanso chuma cha nzeru yawo Mulungu adayenera kuchita chikhulupiriro chawo, adayenera kulamulira makomo awo kusalana iwo kuti kupyolera mu banja la dongosolo labwino angakhoze kupereka dziko lapansi chikoka chachoonadi pa mitima ya anthu. So Mulungu akumwamba akutiyitanira kuti we should have faith in him, and this faith is necessary not only for the understanding of prophecy but also for a Christian experience that will be saving kumapeto kwake. These are some of the fundamental issues that I want us to discuss in our understanding of prophecy. I will also send some of the rules when you interpret Bible prophecy. Find many of the things that are covered in here. It's just that we had a different structure to the flow of the presentation. But how you open up for questions or comments from you, and then we can close this session. Any more questions? Yes?
When I comment, Chonali, Sikimango, only Gabriel, Bagamots, Manga Pagona, what you know, the Kubia Kuti, might be looking at Chonali Yonse. Your bam. The other side, the enemies are in a Kalamo, we are one being. So, there was one way. With the enemy, so that the kangaroo would how it out will be by
Yeah, that is a very important point. In fact, when we need it, he doesn't just give knowledge for the sake of giving it. And that is why even it took events that happened from 1798 onwards, put an applicable basis at the judgment hour message, because up until that time they would not have had a good use of it. And you can imagine, let's say, if some of the early Christians understood Buddhi, for example, the 2,300 days, they would have to wait from, they would have to project. Let's say somebody was